Hi, Jamie. Good to see you.
Hi again.
You've always impressed me with your resilience and determination. When you were a kid, you were great. And do you still feel that way with your life? I mean, you've got a lovely partner and now a baby, Moby. You must be feeling good about life, really.
Yeah, I think in all those in those ways I am. Yeah, I think having Pompe disease is something that you learn to live with, and as a kid you don't really know you've got it either. So it's so
Hmm.
much until you grow up and mature and you understand it a little bit more. But I guess it depends on how severely affected you are as well, though.
And we showed that in the films that we created together. And I know we sent you a good brief for the film, but you really put your own mark on it. And I just wondered what inspired your concept for how the film should be, and how you wanted it to perhaps differ from other charity films.
Yeah, I think with interview situations, when you're interviewing people one on one, there's such it there's a tendency for it to turn rather corporate and dull. So we wanted to put a I wanted to put a more authentic human perspective to each film, and make them very honest and humble, and less flashy, and more about getting into the day in the life of each character, but letting their personality seep through as well, and making it feel relatable, and like you feel like you're there with them. I just yeah I my angle has always been to add that human element, and to make it filmic and beautiful, but through the reality of each setting we're in, each home, and really getting to the truth of each person, and not trying to make it too sentimental or too overstated, but just trying to keep a reality to it that's beautiful in itself. So yeah, it was really just trying to get to the core of each person's patient story, and tell it in an inspiring and beautiful way that's slightly uplifting, but not too depressed. Yeah, and just never being too depressing about the subject, because it can be quite a hard hitting subject at times, especially for Pompe patients to watch.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what we wanted, really. We didn't want those hard hitting, too technical films, but we wanted something where somebody who was newly diagnosed perhaps would see people having a good life. And I think you've certainly shown that. I mean, we've had nothing but praise for the films from all sorts of people, from people who wished that they'd seen those when they were newly diagnosed, to companies using it as for staff training. And they're going to be a good resource that we've made. Took its time, mind you, because of COVID, but we got there in the end. Um, I mean, did you think that having Pompey yourself influenced any of your creative ideas, or?
Well, when I work in film, whether it be documentary or commercials, I tend to put that to the back of my mind, having Pompe disease, because I don't want it to get in the way, or I don't want it to um, make me obvious that I have it. I often hide it, and I think I do that when I go on jobs away. I don't tell the people I'm working with often that I've got Pompe, so I do I compartmentalize my life a little bit, and I think Pompe disease I'm lucky enough to forget about sometimes, and therefore most of the time I'd say I don't use it, or don't um, use that side of my life in work. But this was a project that definitely brought it to the forefront and made me rethink whether I do need to be a bit more present with having and being aware, being present and aware of living with Pompe disease, and using it to my benefit at times as well. And I think that did help. I do know what about, I do know what a BiPAP is. I do know about the enzyme replacement therapy. So it definitely did influence the film in the sense that I have more of an understanding of the subject matter, and that's always going to help. But then there's something to be said for having a fresh perspective as well. And sometimes I go into other projects with completely no understanding of what I'm, what I'm filming. Like I do relate to some of the characters in the films, and I think that helped. But then again, I didn't relate to some, and I think that also made me think about what an audience would find more interesting. And from my point of view, it being new to me, I can kind of understand what a new audience would take away from it as well. So I'd say it doesn't necessarily, it didn't need me to know about Pompe disease. I think I would have enjoyed jumping into the project and learning about Pompe disease.
That's right. So just a final question on the film. I just wondered if there was any particular way that you would like to see them used. Is there any?
Yeah, well, I think I always saw these films as episodical, so that they're episodical, so that you could, they were bite-sized, and you could understand each patient's story clearly and in an engaging way, and that you can understand the different perspectives of different patients, the different situations of different patients. And 10 minutes is quite a long time for being online. It sounds like a short amount of time to most people, but nowadays with all the social media platforms like TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram stories, people just want to watch 2 minute or even 30-second videos. So it is a difficult medium, and I feel like the films we made were very filmic, very cinematic and beautiful in a very naturalistic way. Would be lovely to premiere them on a screen or have them on TV. I think that's the way these 10-minute films would be intended, conferences and and the like, or sent directly to people who are very interested in this subject matter. But then on the flip side, I think for reaching a wider audience, it's so important to cut down these videos into even more bite-sized chunks, like to really hone in on certain points as well, that people can engage with and watch on the go.
So you obviously have quite a lot of knowledge about Pompey because you've grown up with it, and I just wondered how you felt over your life living with me and your mother being so involved with the Pompey charities and so close to the Pompey community. Did that help or get in the way or irritate? What do you think?
Well, like I said earlier, when I was a kid, I kind of put it to the back of my mind, and I was lucky enough and privileged enough not to have Pompey as badly as some, so I could keep up with my friends to some degree. I wouldn't be able to keep up at school in the races like long distance or short distance running, but I could keep up to a certain degree, and therefore I did hide it. And so thinking about Pompey as a kid was kind of a bit of a drag, if I'm honest, and it kind of made me a little bit more down about things. So when going to conferences and when your parents are involved so heavily in those conferences, it definitely wasn't particularly positive for me. It was more of a reminder of having a genetic condition, and also the conferences are not targeted at 10-year-old kids. So when you're sitting in a lecture about muscle degradation and at a molecular level, and it's even very complicated for layman adults, I'd imagine. Like it's quite hard and dry, hard hitting and quite dry when you listen to a scientist talk about things on that level. It's super interesting, and now I find it very interesting, but as a kid maybe not so much. And I think it just reminded you of the fact that you've got this condition, which is it's progressive, and it's not going to get better without intervention. And at the time when I was a kid, there wasn't really any intervention, was there? So it was a very much in 10 years, hopefully we'll have something.
It
And
was about
then
10
a
years
few
ago.
years later, they'd still say 10 years. So it was always a little bit worrying that, okay, I'm going to have to live with this like I am for the rest of my life, and it's not going to get any better. But when I was 15, things changed, and enzyme replacement therapy came along, which was very positive.
Do you feel you ever need to talk to anybody about Pompey, particularly, you know, with your partner Denny, with your parents, or the Pompey community? Do you ever find that beneficial, or doesn't really come up much?
Well, whilst I'm stable and whilst I'm not having too many issues, I don't feel the need to talk much about my condition with anyone. I mean, if it interferes with something, then of course I will talk to Denny about it, and my doctors. But I feel like the patient community, although I know most people, and it's lovely to have a chat with everyone, I don't have to rely on it too much in my daily life.
No, you're obviously having a good life in creative Folkestone. You and Denny have your new baby, Moby. Hello, Moby.
Hello. This is Moby. This is Moby. He's only just over 2 weeks old, so he's getting to grips with the world right now. Hi. Moby says hi to everyone in the
Yeah,
Pompey community.
and
And yeah, he's not very good at talking on cue right yet. Not quite right now, but he's getting better, isn't he? Day by day, sleeping
yeah,
and in the night, and pretty calm.
he's a beautiful little boy. He's lovely. Right. Thank you.
Bye bye.